Two Worlds, One Family by Dragon Translator. Chapter 37. I didn't do it! Toothless pounced beside Sharpshot, growling. Stormfly screeched and stood behind Hiccup. Shadowfire stood, but only had to step forward a couple of steps to lower his head beside Toothless and growl at the Red Terror as well. Stop! Hiccup said firmly. Every dragon, except two rather small terrors, froze. They stopped when the Yellow Terror Elder, Brynja suggested to be named Sage, chirped at them. All the dragons, even the two small terrors, looked up at him. Every terror except Sharpshot, Sage, and you, Hiccup said, looking down at the red female. Go with Toothless over to Gida. Toothless's eyes became slits. For a moment, he did not move, then tossed his head and warbled something strict-sounding in the old tongue. All the full-sized terrors, except those who Hiccup singled out, followed him. The two small ones remained, staring at Shadowfire with rapt attention. Hiccup tilted his head. Shadowfire, take them and stand with your mother. Shadowfire cooed at the two small terrors, who squawked. He lowered his head more, and both terrors hopped onto his neck. He stood carefully and made his way to stand behind Gida, Toothless, and the other terrors. At a chirp from Shadowfire, the other terrors flared their wings and flew to land upon his back. He gently lay down. Hiccup saw Toothless begin to lift a paw and shook his head. Toothless frowned and sat down with a huff. Gida, gently running her hand over the top of the Night Fury's head, did not seem to cheer him any. Hiccup smiled, knowing why Toothless was annoyed. Toothless still felt it was his duty to watch over everyone in the nest. He had not fully given up his role as protector. Hiccup tipped his head once to his brother, showing that he understood, but still needed him to stay there. Hiccup then turned to Stormfly. Please go and find out where the twins and Barf and Belch are. Stormfly bowed to him before moving away. She flared her wings and soon rose above the rim of the cove. Hiccup looked over at Astrid. Please, join me, and hold my brother, he said, sitting down beside Sharpshot. Astrid moved over, sitting down and picking Sharpshot up. The terror remained in her lap, but did not lay down. He stood, paws in between the spikes on Astrid's skirt, and stared at the red female terror. Hiccup turned his attention to the newcomer. You are the one on the Great Hall statue. The red terror lowered her head, but did not bow. Sharpshot hissed at her. Hiccup placed a hand upon his brother's head. Sharpshot calmed. Hiccup turned back to the female. I, alpha of this nest, she said. That was me. She looked at Sharpshot and sighed. He is correct. My previous flock attacked his, and it was my brother that killed his parents. Previous flock? Hiccup asked. The terror sat down. My brother was cruel. He tormented those in our flock smaller than him. Our elder had a limited ability to see and hear, due to an incident in his youth, and our parents were not the flock leaders. Their job had them always out of our tree, gathering food. They did not know that my brother was doing, and he scared those he tormented into not speaking. He told me, and them, that he would feed us to the monster in the fog if we told on him. Our flock leader cared little what the young did, so long as they left him and his immediate crushed kin alone. After the attack, I left the flock. Hiccup frowned. What prompted the attack? I do not know. I was not at the tree when the attack began. I had been out with my parents gathering food and learning where they hunted and foraged. We got back after the attack ended. The female faced Sharpshot and fully laid down, wings outstretched. I am sorry. I did not know, or I would have warned your elder. She was always kind to myself and my parents. Hiccup turned to Sage. She is right. Her parents disliked the way their flock leader conducted himself, and had been seeking an audience with your parents, Sharpshot. They had expressed a desire to leave their flock and join us. The attacks happened before I could get such a meeting together. Sharpshot stopped glaring at the Red Terror. He faced the Elder and gave a soft, stressed-sounding chirp. Sage cooed in response. Sharpshot lowered his gaze and his wings fell. Astrid scooped him up. He snuggled his head into the space under her chin. Hiccup reached over, laying his hand on Sharpshot's wing, his thumb running circles in a slow, steady manner. Sharpshot shuddered, and Hiccup's heart broke upon hearing his brother give a low, mournful cry. Hiccup wrapped his arms around Astrid and Sharpshot, pulling both against his chest. He blinked when all three were enveloped in darkness. Toothless cooed, and Hiccup realized his brother had covered them with his wing, while curling himself as tight around them as possible. Long moments later, Sharpshot stirred. Hiccup stepped back gently, in order to give his little brother what space he could. The wing had yet to lift, and Toothless remained a close form around them. Sharpshot cooed. Toothless's wing lifted, and the Night Fury shifted so he was only half wrapped around the three. Hiccup reached over, scratching Toothless's side just under where the wing membrane connected to the dragon's body. His brother had disobeyed the order to remain with Gyda, but Hiccup found he could not stay mad. He knew he would not have stayed still had he been the one ordered to stay to the side and heard Sharpshot's cry. "Why are you here?" Sharpshot asked the female, drawing Hiccup's attention back to the matter at hand. The female and Sage moved closer. Marks in the dirt proved that Toothless's maneuver had both scrambled, had gotten out of the way. "After I left my previous flock, I just wandered," the female began. "I met up with other tiny fangs that had either left their flocks of their own choice, or had lost their flock in some way. We travelled, never really finding a place we could all live. Then we saw 2 double mines, showing a third, a smaller one, how to fish in the waters north of here." The female paused. "One proved to be the double-mined elder for this nest, and he directed us to the tiny fang elder." "I let them stay in our tree, Alpha," Sage said, looking up at Hiccup, as if it were to ask her if her actions were correct and allowed. Hiccup tilted his head and smiled. "I'm glad," he said. "I want humans and dragons to find peace here and a place to rest." He grinned. "And a home, if they are so inclined." Sage chirped and her wings flitted. "Thank you, Alpha. I have heard tales of the other Alphas, Queens, and flock leaders denying newcomers a chance to just rest." Hiccup snorted. "So long as they don't harm any dragon or human, I don't mind. Let them come." Sage chittered and nuzzled against Hiccup's knee. "I had planned to bring them all before you this day, Alpha, so that they could greet you, and any that wished could stay could request it." The elder looked back at the female, snorted. "It seems one got impatient. I could not wait until after my turn at patrol." "All of the tiny fangs in the tree told us of their Alpha," the female said, ducking her head. "They spoke of a human both wise and brave. I could not believe it. I, and many who fly with me, have not had many good interactions with humans. I had to see it for myself." The female then looked at the Yellow Terror. "I am sorry, Elder, for not waiting as you had requested." She turned to Hiccup, and this time bowed to him. "I am sorry, Alpha of this nest, for intruding upon your dens without invitation or permission." Hiccup felt a nudge from Toothless's paw, sat at his hip, and realized he could not dismiss the female's apology any more than he could lawkeepers from that first day. Hiccup tilted his head. "I forgive you," he said softly. Hiccup looked over at the other terrors, still with Gyda and Shadowfire. The full-sized terrors sat upon Shadowfire's neck and the saddle, watching the exchange. The 2 small ones chased each other in between the spikes that ran down the centre of Shadowfire's back. Hiccup looked back at the female. "Have they all lost their flocks, or had cause to leave?" The female sat up and tipped her head. Hiccup frowned.
What about the two small ones?
The female sighed. They are fledglings. Their parents disappeared. We found them in their tree. They had been without food for a day or two.
Hiccup looked over at Sharpshot. He wanted to welcome the entire lot of terrors into the nest, but he would not allow one to remain if his brother had an issue with her. He would figure something out so that the female was not cast down in dishonor, or however the dragons did such things, but he would respect his brother over the newcomer. A tribe, a nest, was one thing. Family was something else entirely, and having only just regained his in full, Hiccup was highly reluctant to let anything happen to it. Sharpshot sighed. He stirred enough that Astrid let him down. He walked closer to the female. Hiccup blinked as Sharpshot span and smacked her with his tail once before hopping into Hiccup's lap. The female did not move and did not say anything. Sage watched in silence. Hiccup looked down at Sharpshot. The elder says she is innocent of my parents' death. I have no issue with her now. Hiccup blinked. He saw Sage nod, a smile upon her muzzle. Hiccup frowned, but the female, bowing, pulled his attention. Alpha of the nest, I greet you as the oldest of the flock I travel with. I thank you for your nestmate's generosity and ask if the flock I travel with may call this nest home. As the oldest, I acknowledge you as the alpha, as my alpha. Those I lead will follow my example. The female chittered. The new terrors upon Shadowfire's back echoed the chitter. Hiccup looked over, finding all, even the two fledglings, bowing to him. As one, the adults said the same thing. Our alpha! Hiccup blinked, but looked back at the female. You and they are welcome here, he said. Just know there are rules. Sage will help you learn them and find you places to live. His eyes narrowed. And this goes for all the dragons in this nest. So, ma'am, he said, turning to look at the yellow female, please tell the other elders, so they can tell all dragons. If someone is bullying you or hurting you in any way, tell someone. I don't care what the bully says they will do. I will not let them hurt anyone who informs an adult, human or dragon, about what is going on. I detest bullies. Any that try, I will punish. Sage bowed. I shall tell them as soon as I return to my tree, Alpha. The female then tilted her head. 2 humans and a double mind from your inner circle told me and the others that you requested our presences here. Yes, I have something to speak with all the terrors about. I know many of you help the patrols and gather small fruit from the forest, but I was wondering if you would all wish for something else to help the nest with. It's just a small thing, and none of you have to do it if you don't want to. I was just speaking with a farmer, and the idea came to me. Sage chirped. Hiccup got the distinct impression the female was amused. What was your idea, Alpha? The farmer is currently looking after a young girl who was hurt, but the farmer's den isn't close to the rest of the other human dens. I thought, maybe, and again, none of you have to do this, and none of you want to, but I thought some of the terrors could kind of ferry messages between members of the nest. Say if, like, the young girl wakes, but only the farmer is close by, a terror could go and let Gothi know, so she could check on the girl and see if she is okay. Kinda like when you asked one human to go after the human elder to see about the male, and the other male hit, and I went instead? The red female asked. Yeah, Hiccup said, like that. Or if some of the nest were off the island, like our fishermen and women, when they go and gather the fish. A terror could go with them, and if they encounter trouble, come back to the nest and let us know. Or if we need to call them in early, a terror could go and deliver the message to them. Sage glanced at Shadowfire, then back to Hiccup. May the others approach, so that they can discuss this too, Alpha? She asked softly. Hiccup jumped. Oh, sure, he said, his cheeks slightly warm. I only wished for them to stand over there so I could find out what was going on. Hiccup said, looking over the dragons and Gita. All of you can come over if you want.
Before anyone could say anything or move at all, the two fledglings shot off shadow fire. Both bolted up Toothless's back and sat upon his head, chittering and chirping. Sage squawked once. The fledglings froze.
"He said you could come over," Sage said. "He did not say you could annoy his brother or chitter Toothless's ear off."
"She sounds like you, Mum," Shadowfire said, getting up and walking over to lay in a half circle behind Toothless. Geeta snorted but moved over and sat down beside Toothless's head. She looked at the two fledglings, lifting both hands, palm sides up, and had a small fireball hopping back and forth between them. The fledglings cooed and scurried to sit in front of the mage. The fireball vanished. The fledglings squawked. "We should let our alpha finish talking, little ones," Geeta said, smiling down at them. "I'll entertain both of you with more fire." "You promise?" one fledgling, a dark purple one, asked, its voice slightly high-pitched, but definitely male. "I promise." "Yay!" the other fledgling, a red and orange one, whose voice showed it to be female, cried. Both fledglings spun and sat perfectly still, staring up at Alpha. "We isn't, Alpha," the male said. Hiccup blinked and smiled. "Alpha?" he asked. "Big word, hard," the female said. Hiccup looked down at Sharpshot. The terror chortled but moved over to Astrid's lap. Hiccup scooted closer to the young dragons. He held up both hands and turned his gaze. Toothless warbled something, and Hiccup felt small muzzles press into his palms. He turned back, scratching both fledglings on the tops of their heads. They both cooed in delight. Hiccup chuckled. "Alpha it is," he said, scooting back. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed this one. You might notice something. I'm changing Hiccup's voice a little bit. When I first get into a fic, and as I said, I bulk recorded this, so I'm a bit further into it than I normally would be. But, yeah, I'm trying to give some of his more sarcastic drawl back, but I can't make it too different from what I did before. But it takes a while for me to settle into a new voice. That poor red terror, though. Having a bully for a sibling, that's horrid. And then coming back and realising what they did, that's horrible. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified for whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.